Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bob Stoops app. I'm Brad McMullen, along with Hall of Fame college football coach Bob Stoops, and we're talking week one. We had week 0 last week with interesting games with Nebraska and Illinois. But moving into week one, let's talk about some of the huge ones that are out there, Coach.
There's a lot of great games.
Great ones. Ohio State at Minnesota to start off.
Fortunately, I get to be at that game. I'm going to be on the pregame show going into that game, and two really good football teams that people are underrating, probably Minnesota. They have 20 starters back. And
Wow.
reading through the starters that are back, I bet more than half of them are seniors and fifth-year seniors. So a lot of great experience. The only downside with that is their defense last year with all those starters was not very good.
Not good.
So they were in the bottom, maybe ranked 102nd maybe in points or yards given up, I believe it was. So, but you got to think with another year of experience and all being seniors, they're going to be much better. But Ohio State, then you have Ohio State with all the talent. They're in the top 1, 2, 3 in the country every single year with in recruiting, and they've got a fair amount of starters back as well. But anyway, so I think it's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, it should be fun to watch, and the crowd in Minnesota will be very, very loud for that ball game. Ohio State, a 14-point favorite. Other big games going on in week one, North Carolina at Virginia Tech. North Carolina favored by 5.5. Mac Brown, you're very familiar with him. A lot of people saying, hey, this team could contend for a national championship this year.
Well, I believe Mac Brown is an excellent football coach, so he'll get them right. I do believe, again, they have a lot of returning starters. They have a lot of experience. They've got a great quarterback, who's really come on last year. So they'll have a chance. I'm not ready to put them in front of Clemson. I don't think that's going to happen. But I know they're going to have an excellent year.
Yeah, great team. But when you play a team like Clemson that has 5 stars all across, it's quite the challenge, to say the least. Another big game you're going to be covering, actually, number 19 Penn State at number 12 Wisconsin. That should be a great game as well.
Camp Randall Stadium. I can't wait to be there. I've played in that stadium. I've been a young graduate assistant coach in that stadium. It's loud. The stadium actually rocks back and forth when they get to singing. I believe it's the Budweiser song, if I remember correctly. So great atmosphere to see a game. I'm excited to be there. Both teams last year had, to me, total outlier years. They had poor seasons right around 500. Penn State started off 0-5 and then went 4-0 to end the season. And in Wisconsin, similarly, they were right around 500. Very unusual for them. And because of the COVID year, I'm not one to make excuses or give passes. I give them both a pass. Every area of the country was a little bit different on how they had to handle it and what their protocols were. So I believe both these teams are going to be really good this year and have a chance to maybe compete with Ohio State for the championship.
Now we talk about momentum. The Indiana game last year, where Penn State really had that game in control, and at the end things started to fall apart. You had the quarterback running around the end, diving for the end zone, and then all of a sudden it was like all that momentum, all the expectations for Penn State, it was gone in a flash. And then, as you said, started out 0-5 after that.
No, it knocked the wind out of them. They never recovered until midway through the season, and then they really hit their stride. It was like total reverse. You look at the turnover margin. The first 5 games, they were really in poor shape. The second half of the season, great shape. Same with total yards, points per game, defensive, the yards they've given up and points they've given up. It's like midway through the year, everything flipped. And they did a good job to finish the way they did.
So Vegas has Wisconsin favored by 5.5. Do you think Penn State goes on the road and pulls the shocker, or you go with the home team in that game?
I'm going with the home team. Wisconsin's got a lot of really powerful offensive weapons back. And I really believe their Jim Leonard, their defensive coordinator, is one of the best in the country. So I really believe his defense will continue to play really well.
So the team that really caused the disaster for Penn State last year, Indiana, comes into the 2021 season red hot. traveling to Iowa this week. Iowa favored by 3.5. Your alma mater, Iowa.
Well, I'm a homer. I'm going with Iowa, of course.
Just why even ask, right?
But really, last year, same thing. They had a really strong year. I think they lost their first 2 games and then won a 6-7 game winning streak. And both offense and defense ranked in the top 1, 2, 3 in every offense and defensive category. So a really well balanced team. Quarterback back. So with that experience, I like I like my Hawkeyes, of course, but it'll be a tough game. It'll be a really good game.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch that one. Notre Dame at Florida State. Notre Dame favored by 7.5. A lot of question marks at Florida State. The last few years, that's not the Florida State team you used to coach against, that's for sure.
It really isn't, and I don't know what to make of it. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can right the ship and get back to playing with the attitude, toughness, and all that they were so used to playing with. That'll be interesting. I'm going to be anxious to see it. I really believe in Notre Dame's physicality, their toughness under Brian Kelly. Year in and year out, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a tough, disciplined, hard-nosed football team. And I believe the same thing's going to be that way this year. And I think Florida State will have a hard time with it.
I agree. And you also look at how Notre Dame has been recruiting the last few years. They've been really improving on that. All right, arguably the game of the week, Georgia, Clemson. Georgia, an underdog. That's right, an underdog against Clemson. Clemson favored by 3.
I don't know. I like Georgia because of the returning quarterback. I like Georgia because they've got, for what I read somewhere, they have 19 5-star high school players starting for them, whether it be through transfer or their own great recruiting as well. And listen, Clemson's obvious, everyone knows, a great football team. And I think maybe with the new quarterback and just starting off, and that may take just a little bit, and I give Georgia the edge because of that, because of the experience at quarterback, and both have great football players on the field. So it's going to be a great game to see. It's
going to be fun, and 2 teams. If you look at Las Vegas, in the top 5 odds for making the playoff and even playing in the national championship. It feels like a playoff game in week 1. It's nice to see a big game like that being played.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you got to give hats off to both coaches, ADs, wanting to get themselves together first game of the year. And it's going to be really exciting. I just, the last part of the year, Georgia went 4-0 starting JT Daniels there at the last part of the year, completing near 70% of his balls, over 300 yards. Really played well for them, and I believe that's going to carry over into this season. And he's going up against Clemson's DJ.
And the key could be the Clemson defense. How well they play, a number of young players on there, but Brent Venables always gets the most out of his defenses.
Brent's a great coach, and he has 9-10 starters back. I know their last game of the year, they'll want to avenge. They didn't play very well in their last game, gave up some big yards last year, and with all those returning starters, I believe they'll have a great year defensively this year.
And no matter what happens to Clemson in week 1, keep this in mind: they are not set to play another ranked team the rest of the year. That's right. No one ranked on their schedule after week 1. So if they don't have a good day against Georgia, it may do pretty well
tough
for the rest of the games. All right, Alabama, Miami, they're going to be playing this one in Atlanta. Miami, a big underdog. Alabama favored by 19.5.
Yeah, the only chance they have and is De'Aaron King. If anybody's ever had success, you think back to the Johnny Manziel, you think back to Trevor Knight and our Sugar Bowl. Quarterbacks sometimes can get hot and have a big day against Alabama. De'Aaron King coming off a knee injury, from a year ago, and an ACL injury. Can he be back to that kind of play in the first game? So that's, in my opinion, is their only opportunity, is he gets hot and has a big day. But the overall talent recruiting that Alabama's had through the last 3, 4, 5 years, too strong. And Miami hasn't been that caliber when it comes, that caliber of player when it comes to recruiting and all. So I think they're going to have a hard time with Alabama.
Yeah, and if you notice this, Alabama keeps replacing coaches, they keep replacing players, but the one thing that has remained consistent has been winning, and at the highest level.
And Nick Saban.
Yes.
So you can't, the winning comes, to replace the coordinators, the number of coaches, the quarterbacks now, so this, you have to give Coach Saban credit, for keeping it together regardless of the changes. And I believe it'll be the same thing this year. They'll be up there fighting for it all once again, and I don't think Miami will be much of a match for them.
All right, an interesting game. Louisiana at Texas. Louisiana comes preseason ranked for the first time in I don't know how long at number 23, Texas in at 21. This is an interesting game because Louisiana has made a habit over the last 5 years of beating teams they were not supposed to beat in week one, or giving great teams anything and everything they didn't want to handle in week one.
It's got to be a close line because this is a really dangerous game for Texas.
Texas actually favored by 8, so it's close but not too close.
It's going to be really interesting just for the first game, to come out and play a really good football team. Louisiana, as you said, is a really strong team, starting a fresh new quarterback. So it's good. It's going to be interesting, but I believe overall Texas will be too strong for them overall and be able to get it done.
And I think a lot of times when it comes to Louisiana, they've been able to sneak up on some people, right? Because point spreads were big. All the preseason hype was, oh, you're going to win, you're going to win, you're going to win. They're coming in ranked in the top 25. They've got the attention of everyone in Austin, and I think it's going to be a great, great football game. All right, Tulane at Oklahoma. Let me repeat, at Oklahoma. 4 days ago, it was in New Orleans at Tulane, but now because of Hurricane Ida and all the devastation that happened in Louisiana, that game has been moved to Norman. Tulane, a 27-point underdog against the Sooners, and obviously there are things that are much more important than football that may be on the mind of some of those players.
Yeah, unfortunately, you hate it for their families, everyone dealing with all of that down in the southeast there. Really tough time. So in the end, Tulane is a better football team than everybody thinks or realizes.
Way better.
Really good, strong football team. They've done a great job there. But I don't believe they're going to be able to match the skill, the speed, the talent that OU has. We've also had great recruiting years. We've got a really talented team. We've got more experience everywhere, quarterback, line, receivers, and defensively. We've got, I think, at OU 8 or 9 starters back under Alex Grinch. I believe we're going to really make improvements there, so they're going to have a hard time dealing with OU.
All right, the last game on our schedule we're going to talk about today, LSU at UCLA. Chip Kelly has been on the hot seat the last couple of years, but in week 0, UCLA looked pretty impressive out there, scoring a lot of points. It looked like the offense that we used to watch when it came to Chip Kelly when he was at Oregon.
Chip Kelly's a great coach. I've known Chip forever, not just because he's a friend of mine. He's got a strong background, and his team looked really good in the first week. And it doesn't matter to me who you play. You come out and you play well. You don't have careless penalties. You're not turning the ball over. You're playing properly. They really did that. LSU had a tough year a year ago. They made a change of coordinator, of course, on defense. Offensively, they've got some new coaches. So this is going to be interesting to me. Can LSU right the ship from a year ago, or are they going to play like the team the year before? So this is going to be an interesting game, and I really, being that it's out that way, I like UCLA, and so we'll see.
Yeah, LSU favored, but by only a field goal, 3 points. Again, if you're coaching in Baton Rouge, the expectation's always going to be very high. Is Ed Ogeron going to be that guy who won a national championship but eventually finds himself out of a job just because of the pressure of the situation? You saw that with Gene Chizik at Auburn. Could it happen again at LSU?
Well, hopefully not. I'm for all coaches, and I think Ed Ogeron has done, obviously, outside of a year ago, incredible job. So, and again, last year, unusual for a lot of coaches, for a lot of teams. Total outlier for what they've been used to doing. So I just throw away last year's records in a lot of ways. So so LSU, they come in and play it all like what they're used to playing like an SEC tough defense and a physical football team, then they'll be able to win that game. But if they turn it over with new personnel and don't play as well defensively, they had a really poor year a year ago, then we'll see how it goes. But it's going to be a good game.
So exciting. Week 1, probably the best slate of Week 1 games we've seen in quite some time. And we're all starving for some football, so it's excited to see.
You got to give the Big Ten credit. They're the ones that came out with all these great Iowa, Indiana. You got Penn State, Wisconsin, Ohio State at Minnesota. Right off the bat, you got a bunch of conference games that are really exciting and closely matched.
It's going to be great for all the fans to be able to watch in the stadiums and also at home. Don't forget, you can win, that's right, a lunch with Coach Bob Stoops. Just enter to win inside the mobile app. And of course, for more videos, just tap on our video tab. For Hall of Fame football coach Bob Stoops, I'm Brad McMullen.